Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Cooking Dimension. Now please welcome your host, Chef Benson.
Buongiorno, my little pizzeros. It's me, Benson. And today on the show, I'm gonna show you how to make a wonderful pizza pie. The first step you want to do is use only the finest dough, fresh out of Chuck E. Cheese. And then, what you're gonna do afterwards is you're gonna make a fresh sauce with tomatoes. Perfecto. What you need to do to get at the sauce is grind it to a nice, delicate paste. Perfecto! Next, we needed the cheese to cover the pizza. For today's episode, I'm gonna use a Gouda because he's a good choice. My wife left me. To make sure all the cheese covers the entire pizza, we need to shave it off into nice, thin strands. Very nice! But wait, Benson is here because there's more! If you want to go for any toppings, go for it! Today, I'm going to make a classic Italian pizza, which means we're only using the finest ingredients from Greece as follows. Pepperoni, peppers, spam, and they go to the cheese. Pepto-Bismol liquid relief caps. It's a pineapple. Can go in the corner like the little naughty ingredient it is. Oh, you're so naughty. Oh, bad girl. And finally, a drizzling of Pringles. Pizza flavored, of course. And voila! You have a beautiful pizza pie that we can now throw in the oven. Well, it seems our oven is broken. Not to worry though, audience. I have a quick bake trick that'll give this a zesty aroma. Here we go. What are you doing in my kitchen? It's me, Benson. Again. You just came in time. I'm making a pizza worthy of the gods. That's not how you make a pizza. Aren't you a professional chef? We've a quarter of a Michelin star, yes. Then why would you make a pizza like that? Who taught you to take such liberties? He did.
Hello, and welcome back to Benson's Bullshit and Craftery. It was indeed me who taught him to divert from the path you know so well. Kinda like how Paper Mario diverted from the path after its success with Thousand Year Door.
And besides, I crave to be the spiciest chef ever, and to do so, I have to follow in the footsteps of my role model, the zany Peppino. Who? The chef chiseled from the mozzarella of the gods, the man who rose above the rest in the name of pizza, the man who is the sole survivor against the war against good food. Again, I repeat, who? He's the protagonist of Pizza Tower. Oh, yep, that makes sense. That all makes sense. Yep, that game. You know, now that I think about it, you're like the umpteenth person to bring up that game. I guess now's a better time than ever to actually review it. Mainly to get you away from the kitchen. Shit, though, the studio's still filled up with a whole bunch of construction stuff because we're still remodeling the house. Oh, that won't stop us from cooking up a delicious review. We have a wonderful gluten-free option at our disposal. What? The old setup? Really? We have nothing left to lose yet. Feels weirdly nostalgic being here again.
Really hope I don't have to do this all year. Regardless though, you guys remember in the last video when I said that 2023 has the potential to be a better version of 2022 and then some? Well, looking in retrospect at the last 3 months, I'd say that wasn't an exaggeration. Do I even need to list off the bangers we've already gotten this year? Who am I kidding? I'm gonna anyways. Fire Emblem Engage, Dead Space Remake, Like a Dragon Ishin, Octopath Traveler 2, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, The Cosmic Shake, A Space for the Unbound, and several remasters that need no introduction. The list goes on and on already. 3 months in, mind you. All these games and more to come are beautiful ingredients to the delicacy that is the video game industry in full swing. We really are already eating well, and in some cases, already have contenders for Game of the Year before other hits, like Tears of the Kingdom, come out soon. It's genuinely mind-blowing. Amidst all these talks of Game of the Year already in full swing, there's been one game though that I had barely heard anything about before release that is already running away with the title for so many people. A game that's hard to ignore, with tons of art still being done of it. A game that has drawn me in from afar. A type of game that I haven't seen around these parts in ages, but has captivated so many people with its flair, and then some.
Metroid Prime Remastered!
What? It's Pizza Tower.
Releasing this year on January 26, Pizza Tower is a 2D platforming game developed by Torde Pizza that's gained traction as fast as its gameplay style. Beginning development around 2018, it's gone through several revisions and ideas before being fully realized and funded on Patreon into the game we're seeing today. Cited as being very inspired by Wario Land in gameplay and 90s cartoons like Ren and Stimpy in visuals, Pizza Tower has quickly found itself in the middle of almost immediate critical acclaim, with so many people praising the humor, visuals, soundtrack, and especially the gameplay. In regards to negatives I've seen floating around, many of the talking points seem aimed more so at its length, certain level designs, and every once in a while I saw a complaint about the sound mixing. Other than that, this is yet another game that I've seen where there are 1 or 2 complaints agreed upon across the board, but everything else is just a preference of taste, much like pizza itself. If everything hits as good as I hear it is, this has all the makings to be a classic in my books, and I'm dying to dive into it.
It's crazy to think something like this has gained traction so fast. Indie games becoming classics is no shocker at all. We've seen it done before. But whether it's the art design igniting the cry of 1,001 Twitter artists feeling suddenly inspired, or it's the gameplay scratching a Wario Land itch that I never knew existed, Pizza Tower has found itself at the center of everything. Something's gotta give, and I for one am excited to find out what it's all about. With all this in mind though, is this game worthy of being at the top of the tower of games in 2023, or should it no longer be pizza time? Get ready to go in at mock speed, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pizza Tower. What's that? The game's on PC? Son of a bitch, I gotta change scenery again.
No, you don't. You can take this game on the go now.
What? Oh, wait. Steam Deck. I get it now. It's Steam Deck verified. Cool. Well, you know what they say. If Nintendo won't bring a beloved series back, do it yourself on better hardware.
The game opens up on a sequence where we see Peppino swimming in debt and suddenly confronted by the antagonist of this game, Pizza Face, who has built a tower and tells Peppino that if he can't climb to the top of it and stop him, he's gonna blow up Peppino's pizzeria. And just like that, we immediately speed off into action. I continue to find myself talking about visuals almost immediately the more I play games with insanely different art styles, but can you blame me here? When I heard that the game's visuals were inspired by 90s cartoons, I honestly thought it was just going to be a dash of it, but no. This game could be turned into its own cartoon if it really wanted to be. All of the scenery and enemies look like they're a mix of early SpongeBob and MS Paint in a way that is surprisingly charming. You would think that such a statement on visuals would raise eyebrows and statements comparing it to something you'd see on Newgrounds in the worst way possible. But Pizza Tower mixes the two art forms with gusto. One level will have you traversing the tower itself, but soon enough, you'll be traversing farmlands, sewers covered in literal shit, and even a golf course, and to distinguish the difference between set pieces in the foreground and the backdrop, let every detail and color pop amazingly. It's such a simple art design that has you paying attention to every silly gag that goes on and doesn't take away from the action that we're gonna go over in a second. It really is the tried and true idea of simple yet effective in the best way possible, because trust me, you'll appreciate the simplicities of this art with how fast and chaotic this game is gonna get. Speaking of chaotic, everyone's favorite part of the visuals, including me, is the cast of characters themselves and how expressive they are. Even just having a TV screen in the top right corner of Peppino reacting to everything got so many good laughs out of me, because it's all so heavily cartoonish that it adds to the wackiness this game produces. Most of the humor in this game is so successful because of how reactive and expressive these characters are, and they don't even say a word. They just let their faces do the talking for them, and Peppino has shot up as one of my favorite protagonists because of it. Even something as simple as him reacting to slipping around or crashing into a wall is funny because he bends and squishes so easily and then pops right back up like it's no big deal. And that's not even going into the title cards before each level. As you enter each level, you get a title card showcasing a look ahead and the title of the level like it's the cartoon episode of the day, and they're so wildly different it's honestly mind-blowing. Seemingly quote-unquote normal ones like Pizzascape are great, but the more you progress through the game, the more unhinged they get. Look at this one for a level simply called War. Just look at it! I'm not kidding when I say I almost lost my new PC because I made the horrible mistake of taking a sip of water when this appeared. I could not stop laughing because of how different it was from the already diverse ones beforehand. War never changes, and neither will my appreciation for every ounce of visual design in this game. It's creative, feels nostalgic but refreshingly new in all the right ways, and gets a good laugh out of me almost every time with its punchlines and gag humor throughout. Hands down, one of my favorite presentations by a mile as of right now.
It's time we get into gameplay though, but before we start, a bit of a disclaimer. I have not been into fast-paced platformers as much as I should be. I've obviously played Sonic and the oddball here and there like Spark the Electric Jester, but I wouldn't say I'm a bona fide pro at them. Consider this my nice way of saying that gameplay is going to look a little bit scuffed because of my out-of-touch reflexes.
Oh, mamma mia. Not another reviewer that cannot appreciate the tasty experience because the palate is broken. I guess it's time to put this expired ingredient in the garbage bin.
Hey, whoa, hold on a second there, buddy. Just because I'm not the greatest at the game doesn't mean I'm gonna outright hate it. Sure, some of my level critiques may be taken with a grain of salt by others because of my skill level compared to theirs, but level opinions are from a person-to-person based anyway. That won't affect my overall verdict.
And your verdict is?
Oh yeah. They were cooking with this one.
As I mentioned before, this game heavily refers back to the Wario Land series, but there's also splashes of Sonic speed and a little Metroid level design throughout that continues to give Pizza Tower the vibe of being a love letter to 90s entertainment in such a positive way. In the tutorial, we learn about how these inspirations translate into Peppino's objectives on a level-by-level basis, and also his general moveset, which includes jumping, super jumping, sliding, jump sliding, and the Mach Run, which all heavily rely on and bounce off of your general momentum. You could still do most of these moves at a normal pace and still be slightly effective, sure, but to get the best out of Peppino and the level itself, you have to try and go full speed, and luckily, it's extremely easy to do that with how well thought out this level design is. Ramps, strings of enemies, slopes, and even long straight paths give leeway to plenty of opportunities to get yourself going and keep that momentum, which you're gonna need when we go over level objectives in just a minute. And once you get Mach speed, you can find yourself able to run up walls, immediately dash through enemies as long as you don't get stabbed by any with a weapon, and other incredible feats like breaking certain boxes with ease. Even if you somehow lose momentum, it won't take forever to get it back. It's as simple as dashing back and forth a little bit to rev yourself up again. This extremely flexible level design in regards to keeping the fast and fast-paced platforming is applaudable and helps punctuate the really solid moveset Peppino has. It's nothing too crazy, leave that to the levels, but jumping, wall climbing, and sliding are all almost instantaneously responsive and leave so much freedom to experiment with the best way to fly through a level, and almost everything gets good time to shine. I say almost because as much as I love the moves, I do have one or two gripes with jump sliding and super jumps. Jump sliding in itself is a move I feel like I barely used, and is more tailored for speed running in my opinion, which is totally fine. I just wish there were more situations that had you use it to make it more valuable in a player's normal playthrough instead of just being there. It's pretty responsive, just not all that valuable in the long run, which is the total opposite of super jumping. These can only be activated if you garner enough speed, and while there are some really good instances of using them, more so in levels like Pizzascape and Ancient Cheese, getting them to work can be a bit of a pain at first. In regards to using a controller like I did during my first romp of the game, you have to move the control stick normally to the side and start dashing by holding down RT. But as soon as you come to a part where you have to super jump, you have to push the controller stick up and then release as soon as you have it charged up. For the first few levels where I had to use it, it really wasn't responsive and felt like a very abrupt halt to any momentum you gained, which isn't necessarily a good thing in a game like this. It's not an outright bad move, it just takes way longer than I would have liked to get acquainted to it, with getting the brakes suddenly pumped on me, and feel like it could have been tweaked just a little bit to function without a sudden halt. The tweaks can also be applied to certain enemies, mainly these guys right here, the Fork Knights. Inherently, they should not be as bad as they are, but this is one of those rare moments where I feel like the speed of Peppino counteracts against his obstacles, as the Fork Knight drops their weapons into offensive mode way too quickly at times, and in near-death situations near pits, lava pits like in Bloodsauce Dungeon, and even pizza time when you're against the clock, it can make all the difference in your enjoyment of a level. Every other enemy isn't this bad of a nuisance. In fact, most of the time, they all play the part of stupidly funny combo fodder well. But this makes the Fork Knights stand out all the more negatively, and while it didn't hinder my playthrough, I can see why someone would rage at levels overabundant with them. Other than those gripes that are small pepperoni in retrospect to the greater picture, I found myself right at home with platforming, even if I, once again, am not the best at being the fastest thing alive. It all still feels extremely fluid, and even if you're not the greatest like I am, Torte Pizza designed levels so you could easily get back into the groove and beat a level without ripping your hair out at all, which ties into how I feel about this game in a very favorable comparison to previously reviewed Ollie Ollie World. Every level is easily beatable no matter the skill level, and any momentum can be gained easily without too much of a hitch, making laying the smackdown on enemies and grabbing collectibles to keep your combo going doable for anyone that walks into the tower. Before we even delve into the scoring system, I want to circle back to the objectives of each level, which fall into two main goals: finding Toppins, the little ingredient-based creatures of this game, to earn money to eventually unlock the boss of each floor, and also knock down Pillar Johns that are holding up the coveted pizza tower itself. Also in between these objectives are 3 secret mini-levels that can be found through these eyeballs that help you keep your combo going, and also to find the janitor Jerome and guide him to a locked door only he can unlock to obtain relics, which are just other kinds of food and small objects, which I found totally adorable. All of these objectives, main or optional, showcase the level design superbly and really drive home how Sonic and Metroid-esque they can be and the finer details. There are branching paths and smaller nooks and crannies that can only be explored and unlocked through certain moves or people like Jerome, and even if you don't find anything big, there's always some collectible or other small segue that rewards you regardless, giving the levels a small dash of Metroidvania in their puzzle-like level design that is pulled off seamlessly, and I'm genuinely impressed by the detail that was put into every corner. Some games have decent-sized levels with little reward for going off the main path, even when trying to flex your growing skill by speedrunning should you choose, and often feel disappointing when you run into a corner or path that is essentially nothing, punishing more so than rewarding your puzzle solving and platforming skills. While there are a very select handful of instances like that, Pizza Tower cuts it away for the most part and keeps you wanting to explore, even if it means simply finding more collectibles to keep your combo alive or bashing through walls to create your own shortcut on your return to the area. Yes, I do agree, sometimes the corridor nature of some segments can rear its ugly head when things move a little too fast for your reaction time to a jump or turn that can ruin your speed in a rather annoying way. But for the most part, I'm actually really shocked the love child of Wario Land and Metroid level design came out with very few blemishes. There are levels we will go over soon enough that can be a bit blah, but you really are given so much leeway and depth that it's mind-blowing. It's another really amazing case of a game giving you tried and true basics and giving them so much depth through extremely solid game design that taunts and begs you to learn it inside and out. And you're gonna want to learn the level design, because once you reach the end and take out Pillar John, the level doesn't just end. Oh no, my friend. You have to go all the way back to the beginning because it's time. Pizza time.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just felt a really strong presence go through me. Like a million early 2000s kids screaming in unison at that phrase. What happens during pizza time is that more enemies drop in as you run all the way back the way you came to reach the entrance to the level before the timer runs out and Pizza Face awakens to try and destroy you. But it isn't just that simple. Throughout the level, certain small sections are noticeably blocked off, but during pizza time, they're unlocked and some of your main path is suddenly blocked instead, forcing you to think quickly on your feet and use those shortcuts or any path you carved yourself, like the aforementioned crashing through walls. This final rush of around 2 minutes or so brings all of my praise on the general level design and moveset full circle, because not only are you rewarded for looking around for anything and everything at every turn, but now you're rewarded for paying attention to the level and noting any shortcuts and possibilities to cheat death by cutting off a few seconds from the ticking timer, and it's goddamn brilliant. Most platformers would end the level right at something like Pillar John, but Pizza Tower keeps going by giving you one last mad dash before you move, as not only a means to collect something quickly in case you forgot, but also to appreciate how well the game keeps the tempo going at an extremely crisp and speedy pace. On your way to Pillar John, you may acknowledge how clean and non-stop everything feels, but it's not until you are suddenly caught off guard by the timer for the first time that you appreciate the small details that you probably wouldn't care about until a quick thinking life or death situation like this. I never once had the timer run out on me, shockingly enough, so I don't have any real footage of Pizza Face chasing me, per se. But the sheer fear of knowing an instant KO that resets all of my progress is around the corner made me not want to fuck around and find out. It's genius, elaborate, adds some more meat to an already well-rounded game, and brings more of the game design together when you combine it with one last main ingredient, the score system. Come on, it's a fast-paced platformer. Did you really expect there to not be a scoring system? There is in this game, and it's the culmination of what I love about the humor and gameplay of Pizza Tower. To keep a combo going, all you have to do is beat enemies in quick succession and collect collectibles to keep it up in between enemy beats, and at the end of a level, you're rewarded one of 6 ranks matched with a hilarious Peppino pose. There's D, C, B, A, S, and the coveted P rank. If you're anything like me, you're probably going to end up around the B and A ranks for all levels, which is pretty much okay. It means you're decent at the game, but not top notch. No, that's the P rank. You want to know how to get P rank? Collecting and doing everything in a single, unbroken combo. That's right, P isn't just for pizza, it's for perfect. I have yet to even reach P rank in a level, let alone goddamn S. But you know who has done P rank multiple times in a day's span already? My buddy Napkin Does Stuff. This fucking mad lad has P ranked almost all the levels in a 24-hour span. What godly pro gamer is he? I knew it! Back to the ranks though, you're probably having a heart attack just thinking about it, and I'm sure you're saying the following. Wait a minute, Benson. If it's like other games, can't the combo be possibly broken by not reacting quick enough and falling into a pit of lava, or being unable to dodge an enemy that put their spork down last second to impale you? Doesn't that make it near impossible? And in any other circumstance, you would be completely right. But Pizza Tower does something I didn't even see coming that makes reaching for combos and being the best chef in town possible, even if you need a lot of practice. They did away with health just like Wario Land. If you get damaged, God forbid, you lose a little bit of your score, and even during pizza time, you lose a couple points every second or so. But that's it. Your combo doesn't break unless you let it by not bouncing back in time in a few seconds span. Do you know how cool that is? It's not even just about accessibility and giving everyone a fair shot at a relatively tough but fun platformer. It's just simply gorgeous game design that once again doesn't break the fast tempo of the game. You know what's even cooler though? The fact that every level was also actually designed with the idea of doing it all in one combo in mind. It's ironic that I say this now, but if you take your time and look at enemy and collectible placement, or even at how quickly enemies spawn in during the final phase of a level, you start to notice patterns and almost rhythmic beats to levels that make the gears in your head turn and try even harder to memorize, because that's the whole point of Pizza Tower. You don't have to think too hard about anything. It's all placed out cleverly for you without a second thought. That is wholeheartedly some of the best game design I've seen in any game in the last decade. And I'm not even kidding. If the game was slow paced, then yeah, that would be a detriment to Pizza Tower itself.
but the game is trying to push you on the path of Mach 10 speed without even blinking, so of course you won't even think twice about it. And even then, the simple and effective moveset gives you some more wiggle room to even cheat that, with jumps or chucking enemies at some more up ahead should you choose. It's an open-ended game design that truly lays the foundation out for you, but lets you do it your way when all is said and done. Back to my comparison of what I see in it like Ollie Ollie World, it lets anyone still get the chance to experience the game, but simultaneously allows those daring to try the chance to be insane. With everything added together and allowed to bake with the time you have to experience this in a 5 to 6 hour span at first, you have a beautiful recipe that shows very little cracks on a surface level. A P rank in design in gameplay, if you will.
Now, a while ago, I know I mentioned bosses, and I am so sorry we haven't talked about them yet, and also this review seems a lot more fast-paced and bouncier than my usual stuff, but I can't exactly help it. That's just what Pizza Tower is at its core in the best way possible. There is so much charm and depth to the basics alone that it's mind-boggling how much attention to detail Torte Pizza put into this decent-sized package. And that's not even going into the batshit insanity that a lot of levels and power-ups bring.
Mamma mia, he's gonna let this review cook for another hour, isn't he?
As if everything I mentioned wasn't enough, as if I already couldn't shut up about the game, they had to go and add a metric ton of wacky, zany, out of this pizzeria things to make almost every level memorable in different and genius ways. I won't go over every level and power-up, since there are some that are just simply fun gags and tricks to hold you over for less than a minute, like the Knight and Ghost Peppino that let you hack and slash through enemies and glide through cheese graters without a hitch.
Based on this game's balls to the walls identity, I'm gonna let you determine which one does what.
But I would be damned if I didn't talk about the really cool ideas brought to the table that I loved and helped push the unique identity of this game further. Oh, and golf, I guess. Alright, I'll get this one out of the way now, but I really didn't like the golf level as much as everyone else seemingly does. It's not inherently a bad level per se. I think even the worst levels of this game are at the very least really good, but some of the courses of this are kind of ridiculous in regards to obstacle placement. The level has you knocking around this walking cheese blob and trying to get him into the hole to be a pro golfer, and that in itself is where one of my problems lie. He is constantly walking around, and if he gets up before you run over to hit him again, you could be waiting a couple seconds to line up your perfect shot depending on the circumstances. Not like you'd want to run anyways, because if you run into it before you could stop, that counts as a hit. And that's not even taking into account the noses that'll sniff him up even if he's just a few inches away, and the baseball players that'll pitch him in a very specific direction if they catch him. Again, it isn't every part, and it's not the worst by any means, but I also would be lying if I said I didn't find it a tad bit tedious. Don't even get me started on having to golf during pizza time. It wasn't hard at all, but my heart nearly jumped out of my chest when they hit me with the idea of golfing one last time. It's like taking sports and making them a lot more deadly and anxiety-inducing. Imagine if this was applied to other sports.
Alright, champ, you have less than a minute to score a goal before I drop kick you 6 feet under.
But coach, I can't make that shot. It's near impossible with that wall in front of the net.
What's that? I thought I heard Pussy Boy whining again. Nothing's impossible. You and your generation are just soft.
No, I mean quite literally, there is a wall of fucking trash cans in front of the net. How am I supposed to make that shot?
Figure it out. Forehand backhand it before I forehand backhand you.
Oh.
Again.
I should have taken off interpretive dance.
One of my other standouts that isn't as good as the rest, but still decent at the very least, is the Five Nights at Freddy's parody, Don't Make a Sound.
My guy, do you have a COVID? Because clearly you have no taste.
No, what?
Okay, parts of the first half of the level I don't like as much specifically. It's a really creepy and clever level by making you knock out alarms that will sound off and awaken animatronics to chase you, but the parts I don't like are some of the sections where you're forced to sound off the alarm to open your next path. It just gets really frustrating once or twice when the previously mentioned narrow corridor design comes full force and makes it tough to gain back speed in relation to the monsters closing in, especially when one of them can phase through walls. Those instances don't bog down the level entirely though, but it did wear off the novelty of parodying the jump scares. The second half of the level, however, is just sublime, as you go from Five Nights at Freddy's to Willy's Wonderland with a shotgun and fight back against said animatronics. I just really love that part. But with those two standout levels out of the way, it's time to move to the opposite end of the spectrum and talk about the levels and power-ups that are some of the best in the entire game. I previously mentioned ones like Night and Ghost, but there are smaller ones that just stand out in the short time we get them, like Flaming Mouth, riding sausages in the Wild West, riding corpses in a graveyard, and taking taxis between level segments and Pig City. Every single one of them is just a joy to use, and finds ways to not overstay their welcome while making levels stand out and memorable. A juggling act for a wild adventure like this that isn't always pulled off with such finesse. But there are 3 distinct power-ups and levels that are the best of the class, and one of the first ones I want to mention doesn't even have you playing as Peppino. There are certain segments where you can take control of the other chef Gustavo and his pet rat that add double jumping into the mix that doesn't take away from the levels they're in. These levels are made with them in mind to help keep the quest for P rank reachable without the whiplash of suddenly swapping to a different playstyle, which can honestly be said for most of this game too. They aren't long segments, but playing as Gustavo and getting a breath of fresh air with the double jump is a nice touch. Moving on though, I already talked about this level, but it's just funny as hell to go through that I almost didn't complete it a couple times. Again, I find it hilarious how a game that changes humor so much actually found a way to surprise me big time, but War did it in the most memorable way possible. You get to keep a shotgun on you at all times, which should make P ranking easier because of the range of the shotgun, right? Yeah. If there wasn't a ticking time bomb working against you, the whole level is just one big pizza time, but instead of pizza face, you get a bomb.
Fair trade-off, I suppose.
And you have to reach the end installed time by shooting at objects to increase your time limit. It kept me on my toes and had me sweating several times, thinking I wasn't gonna make it, but left me feeling accomplished with a satisfying phew at the end of it all. And again, everything is laid out for you without realizing it unless you stopped and observe, which you most certainly can't do here because again, ticking time bomb. It's just as clever as anything else and I love it. But the final standout to me comes with a special guest that helped spark an art trend you've probably seen so much on Twitter by now and has easily become one of my favorite levels in the entire game. And it's a game icon many of you probably have never heard of since he left for war against the Bullion. Mort the Chicken.
Darling? You returned from war. I fucking love you too. Mort the Chicken. What the fuck?
This is Mort the Chicken. Who is Mort? This is Mort. From his hit classic Mort the Chicken on PS1 and that's it. Why is Mort here? I don't know. And I don't fucking care, because he's one of my favorite power-ups in the game. You use him as a grappling hook of sorts to swing across his level and peck at enemies to keep your combo going. It's such a small change to what you normally do, but the fact they brought in an obscure platforming character for this one level and gimmick and pulled it off perfectly automatically makes it one of my favorites. I am begging more developers to do neat shit like this. Keep your Disney and Final Fantasy crossovers, keep your Street Fighter and Mega Mans, Mort and Peppino are where it's at. And that is all just a sample of the 20 levels you find yourself going through. Almost every one has its own identity that adds to the 90s cartoon episode of the week charm that is so varied and crazy that you will easily find your favorite before you know it. I may not personally like the golf one, but maybe you will, and that's totally cool. Pizza Tower prides itself on varied shenanigans that keep you on your toes on what fresh zany hell awaits you next, as you take down John, collect toppins, and do it all again without hesitating before you inevitably unlock a boss fight. Ah yes, it's about time I talk about the bosses of this game, and while there are only 5 in total, they all stand out despite following a similar pattern of Phase 1 followed by a sped up Phase 2 with distractions thrown your way to mess up your focus. It's nuts that I could firmly say that the first boss, Pepperman, is my least favorite, not because he's bad by any means, but because he's the simplest of the bunch but is still memorable with his shoulder charge and art theme. Many games can't even get their bosses right, and the fact that the first boss can be more memorable and fun than some later stage bosses. And Pizza Tower just makes it look so easy by later on throwing you in a gunfight with a vigilante that ends at a great standoff. going head to head with the Noise, a very obvious parody of the Noid, in the most unhinged and unpredictable fight of the game that is a great challenge for such an out-of-nowhere boss, and fighting a fake version of you with an excellent first two phases, followed by a bit of a disappointing chase sequence, given it doesn't really put up much of a chase, and the only reason you may get hit once or twice is because of corridor nonsense once again. And then, when the dust settles, it all culminates in an extremely satisfying final sequence against Pizza Face that is reminiscent of Super Mario World and throwing enemies at Bowser to damage him, only to lead into the revelation that Pizza Face is just a mech operated by Peppino's old rival Pizza Head, which then leads into a satisfying bout between two old foes as you counter Pizza Head's almost Disney-like bouncy and cartoony attacks. It's such a delightful fight as everything you've done up until this point throws itself at you, including the old bosses. Yep! As if the two phases of Pizza Head wasn't enough, he throws everyone at you in one last hurrah that doesn't feel cheap because Peppino is ready to kick ass and make pizzas. But he's all out of pizzas. You'll go through all the bosses fighting immediately at their best with some additional flair and take each one out in about 2 hits, making quick work of everyone before ending Pizza Head in what I can only describe as a Dragon Ball Z finale. And it is just marvelous. It's fitting you get to go through a gauntlet of everything thrown at you for the grand finale, and it's all extremely fair and a blast. Extremely well done sequence.
Oh, Peppino, what a great example of a man who amores his work. I remember when I took down my local rival.
And who was that?
Chuck E. Cheese.
That explains all the bankruptcies.
Pump the brakes though, dear audience, because did you really think beating the game would be that simple? With all the shit we've been through, do you really think that? Of course not. And I'm sure you saw what's coming the more you explored each floor, because once more, for the road, it's pizza time. And we have to go down the entire tower we just climbed. This is probably the most satisfying sequence in the game. It's simple, sure, but to go through so many levels and each floor that we know well one last time while rescuing everyone we encountered, it felt like the season finale to a cartoon, which once again matches the entire vibe of this game. It felt conclusive, the end of a journey fully realized as your skills throughout come in handy in one giant blaze of glory, and before you know it, you destroyed Pizza Tower. The ending you get depends on if you collected all the treasures Jerome had locked away, and if you did collect them, you revive Pillar John, who gets a crack at Pizza Head, but if you don't, Peppino just kind of awkwardly watches Jerome grieve like, oh, that sucks. Well, gotta go, pizza. And it got an ironic chuckle out of me. Regardless if you get that small change in a cutscene or not, the credits roll as Peppino returns to his restaurant with more money and customers, saving his pizzeria and ending our time with, wait, Peppino's final judgment? What?
Oh shit! The jig is up! They found my mushroom stash! I gotta run!
His what?
Going back to the final judgment and completion of the tower, one of the last 2 points I have about this game is the Completionist Award. Other than getting costumes for Peppino through achievements, and also the cutscene change with Pillar John, that's pretty much it. There isn't a completion award, and once again, I'm totally okay with it. With how batshit insane this game can get in so many ways, the journey itself and seeing what Peppino is going to suffer through next, on top of trying to P-rank levels, is more than enough to have me coming back and trying to outdo myself and the tower.
Ah, the sound of completionists like myself sighing in relief at these wonderful decisions by developers. It's music to my ears.
Speaking of music to my ears, this soundtrack hits so hard! Taking the Pizza Time song out of the equation for a second because, yeah, it's obviously one of the best and most iconic tracks, this is such an audible treat on the ears that I was humming so much throughout my time with the game. Everything just sticks out and adds layers to the aesthetic of this game in hard-hitting and diverse ways. It's honestly one of my favorite soundtracks in the last year or two that I listen to so much when I'm working out. On a quick side note though, in regards to sound, as much as this game has so much going on at once in a positive way, I did find the sound mixing a bit off myself. So many sound effects overpower and collide awkwardly and loudly that it can be a bit overstimulating to me, and I'm sure others. It's not the worst sound mixing I've ever heard, but a bit more tweaking could have really done the trick, especially with some of Peppino's moves relying on said audio cues. But with everything said and done, that concludes our time looking at Pizza Tower. One of the most batshit rides I've been on, but in all the right ways.
Jesus Christ, that was so many levels of chaos I did not expect to go through. But with all that pizza time, it is review time at last. So, did Pizza Tower cook up a well-rounded and delicious experience? Or is it so hazardous to my health that it should be shut down? I really don't say this often, truly I don't, but I think we have an extremely early contender for a top 5 game, if not the game of the year.
Torte Pizza didn't just deliver an extremely solid, non-stop and in-your-face platformer, but a love letter to all the hits of an extremely ballistic decade of entertainment in the 90s on top of it. It looks stylishly comical, controls superbly, has a high-flying soundtrack, and above all else, triumphs as a diverse platforming experience from level to level. Top it off with how anyone could walk in and find ways to beat the game despite intimidating challenges, and you have such a breath of fresh air that I had no idea what to expect, but goddamn am I happy I played. While it may have hiccups in level design and enemies that can break the pace, and I may not entirely like 1 or 2 levels personally, I still think it's an essential game for this year if you're looking for platforming fun and an example of perfectly thought out level design. And again, looking back at how the developers took it upon themselves to get you acquainted with the level design so you can one day P-rank levels through pizza time and lap 2s and easy to observe patterns and paths, I quite literally mean perfectly thought out level design. The ceiling for speedrunning and all-around replayability reaches to the heavens in the most impressive of ways. Pizza Tower gets its own P-rank for me for being a perfectly awesome game from start to end, and I encourage you to see it firsthand as it's shaping up to be a quintessential game for this year. Plus, it has Mort the Chicken. How can you say no? Don't answer that.
I really do apologize if it seemed like I didn't go in depth with levels as I normally do, but unless it's something like War, Mort's special appearance, or even going golfing, there's not many big changes, but rather smaller ones that add up over time and make everything stand out in the best way possible. Pizza Tower, for all of its insanity, knows when to go big for levels and when to simply just sprinkle on a little pizzazz to what it knows to make everything pop. And with how easy it is to pick up without a hitch, no matter the skill level, you know I'm going to be coming back again and again for the rest of the year to try to get the best score, and maybe even P-rank some levels. P-ranking the whole game though, temper your expectations. That's more my buddy Napkin's thing. But, with all that being said though, that is the end of this review. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. Before you go though, here's a piping hot question time right out of the oven. Have you played Pizza Tower before? What do you think of it if you have? What's your favorite level? And finally, if you could add any special guests to the game, who would it be? I might as well jump on the hype train about special guests and see what crazy guests y'all reply with. Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you liked what you saw, and I'll see you guys next time for our own wacky moments yet to come. Maybe with a special guest or two, but I won't be telling you just yet. Until next time though, this is Benson from the Game Dimension, signing off. Have a good day, guys.
Mwah, bravissimo! What a spicy review!
Oh, thank you very much. I'm surprised you came back.
How could I not? No accomple stopped me from seeing this well-seasoned experience tasted by all.
Well, let me tell you, it's absolutely filling, and I cannot wait to go back for seconds. It's such a treat.
Indeed. Now you see why I idolize Peppino so much. It makes me want to go back and cook again.
No, nope, not happening. You already made a mess of my kitchen, and I do not need you taking your cooking liberties out on my counter again.
Who said it was your kitchen? I'm gonna get my own kitchen, make my own food, and stop the competition with all the money I'm gonna make off of it. I'ma call it Benson's Bistro.
You know what? That's actually really nice to hear. I'm glad you're going to be able to pursue your passion and start a new chapter of your life.
Yes, not before I blow up your kitchen first.
Oh, yeah, that's very nice. What?
Well, yes, what did you expect me to do? Let the police find my stash?
Flush it down the toilet like any other normal person would do!
Well, goodness, you should have said that before I put the pipe bomb in the oven.
A pipe bomb?
Yes, a very well-seasoned experience for the road.
Well, take the seasoning off of it then! Unseason it!
Can't do that. I planted it when I ran away earlier, and it's set to go off in about less than a minute. You're insane! And that is saying something! I know plenty of insane Bensons, including me! Small rollies in the scheme of things. Now, are you ready? Ready for what? Ready to get funky. What? Shit! Shit. Oh. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh god. Woo!
Not that bad. I'm gonna give that run a D rank.
You're a D rank. Do you know how long it's gonna take me to find a new studio? We're talking next video. 2 of them at max.
Shouldn't the bomb have set off by now? I guess the bomb didn't set right.
Oh, thank God, what a relief. Hold on, I'm gonna vomit.
Would eating some pizza help you?
No, you put Pepto-Bismol on that. It's gonna go out the other end.
Suit to yourself.
Oh,
Silly me. Big old mistake here. Big whoopsie. I put the bomb in the pizza box and then the pizza is in the oven. Oh, classic chef mistake.
oh, well, whew, I'm glad that explains a lot. Wait, no, throw that box away!